OMG, they're joining forces. RFK and DJT coming together to save the USA in 2024. It's going to be an amazing thing. It's going to happen, folks. It's going to happen, and it's good for a couple of reasons. And I'll get to all of those here in just a minute. We heard the rumor yesterday about RFK Jr. dropping out of the race and joining the ranks of the Donald John Trump for president in 2024 campaign. And it looks like that's not just a possibility. I believe it's a probability. And like I said, we'll get to all that here in just a minute. Before we do, though, I want to start a new tradition here on Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. First, I want to say welcome to every single Katriot. For those of you who have been Katriots in good standing for a very long time, you know that we broadcast every single day right here from Katriot HQ, which used to be, fun fact, it used to be Katriot Outpost Delta Whiskey. But when we got shut out of Katriot HQ, we had to transfer Katriot HQ to Katriot Outpost Delta Whiskey. So now Katriot Outpost Delta Whiskey is now Katriot HQ. And a little confusing. For all the new Katriots, you don't have to worry about it. This is Katriot HQ. There's no more Katriot Outpost Delta Whiskey. But listen, here's the deal. We have a brand new tradition that I want to start here, and it's something I learned from the Democrats yesterday at the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. They began one of their daily sessions with the national anthem, and I think we should do the same. Maybe not. Maybe, it's weird. It stinks when you're singing the national anthem and you don't know the words. Roseanne Barr got canceled for bastardizing the anthem that badly. Maybe we'll find a different. Maybe we'll find a different version than that. Leave it to the Democrats to not know the national. That's what happens when you don't sing it. That's when you don't have flags on the stage, when you don't sing the national anthem, when you don't say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. You just forget it. You're like, oh, what are the words again? Something about rockets. And the rockets are glaring. It doesn't matter. You know what? We'll figure it out. Just fake it. Just fake it till you make it. Nobody's watching. Listen, before we get to the Democrat National Convention, which was such, I'll be honest with you, I apologize to Joe Biden because, yes, on Monday night, the Democrat National Convention, the DNC went super late. And Joe Biden's speech started at 11:30. It didn't end till after 12. It kept me awake, and I was not happy about it. But at least it was entertaining. These speeches last night from Michelle Obama and Barack Obama were the most pointless speeches I've ever heard in my entire life. All platitudes, literally no function. It was all form, no function. It was platitude, but no actual policy. It was just the biggest waste of time. And I'm going to be honest with you, too. Everyone's talking about Michelle Obama today. Fine. Michelle Obama's a superstar in the DNC. I know everybody loves her, yada, yada. But Barack Obama, what a disappointment. This guy is not a good speaker. I know, yes, he has the oration skills. He's got the cadence. He's got all that. But he doesn't say anything. And I have to imagine everybody left that audience yesterday going, that was fun. But then, it's like eating candy. You get the candy and it makes you feel good for a while, but then you go home and you have a stomach ache and you're still really hungry the next day. Chinese food, the same thing. You eat a lot of Chinese food. You're like, oh, I felt great. But then an hour later, you're like, I don't feel like I ate anything. That was Barack Obama's speech. I'm not going to bore you with Barack Obama's speech because it was boring, but I will pull a couple things from Michelle Obama's speech, which I thought was really interesting. But look, before we get to any of that, though, there's a brand new breaking news scandal that we have to cover involving the economy. Listen to CNN report.
The job growth has been far weaker in the U.S. than originally reported. That is according to new data just coming in this morning. Let's get right to CNN's Matt Egan. What's the headline, Matt?
Jim, 818,000 fewer jobs were added during the period between April 2023 and March of this year. We were bracing for these revisions to come out and show that job growth was weaker, and that is what we got. This is probably on the high end of the expectations. Some of the forecasters had been saying probably around few 100,000 jobs. Goldman Sachs had said maybe up to 1 million. So this is on the higher end. We're seeing some of the biggest revisions downward in sectors that include manufacturing, leisure and hospitality, professional and business services.
818,000 fewer jobs than were reported. 800, that's not a couple 100,000. You know, he said, oh, we were expecting maybe a couple 100,000. We knew that there was going to be a revision downward. 818,000 is closer to 1 million fewer jobs than it is to zero jobs. That is a big revision. That is a massive error, if you will, in calculation. And it's a huge scandal. And I know it's a huge scandal because Donald Trump said so on Truth Social. Massive scandal. The Harris-Biden administration, which BT dubs, sorry, Keith, how great is it that he calls it the Harris-Biden administration? Because now we know who wears the pantsuits in that family. Massive scandal. The Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin they have inflicted upon America. New data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the administration padded the numbers with an extra 818,000 jobs that do not exist and never did. The real numbers are much worse than that, and if Comrade Kamala gets another 4 years, millions more jobs will vanish overnight, and inflation will completely destroy our country. Your life savings will be wiped out. With a Trump victory, we will once again have the greatest economy in history, MAGA 2024. So, oopsie. Joe Biden was going to run for president, and we needed people to think that the economy wasn't nearly as bad as it is. We needed people to think that we weren't headed toward an economic recession. We know that inflation was a problem. We know that job growth was a problem. We knew that people were complaining about all these things. So we're just going to lie. And maybe they lied a little bit at first. Maybe they're like, yeah, just pad it with 100,000 jobs. And then the next month they're like, ooh, that's dismal. Let's pad it with another 100,000 jobs. Ooh, you know what? We're short again. Let's put 200,000 jobs in. No, they've been lying the whole time. Every time this report comes out, it's been wrong. And now that they've went back and actually audited it, it's close to 1 million jobs that did not exist that they were reporting did. And what that does is that it inflates the economic. It inflates the economy basically in every other aspect. And when you inflate the economy based on a lie, it's going to come crashing down. And I think we saw a little bit of that a couple weeks ago with the big crash of the stock market, where everyone's 401ks went. That's exactly what happened. Anyway, that is the big headline today. Before we get into the meat of the program, which is Donald J. Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. teaming up for a dream team to pummel Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the November presidential election. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit actually about jobs and the economy. And let's talk a little bit about communism. And let's talk a little bit about how we know that Kamala Harris's economic strategy is going to be just as bad as Joe Biden's, because they are using the same horrible strategies that were introduced to them by their favorite socialist, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, when he was paid off by Hillary Clinton to go back to the Senate and drop out of the race. Bernie Sanders, when he was paid off by the Democrats once again to drop out of the race and allow Joe Biden to take the helm in 2020 and defeat Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders, who was given the job of drafting Joe Biden's economic policy, drafting Joe Biden's healthcare policy. All of the reports that Joe Biden has been pushing on the American people have been co-written by Bernie Sanders, and probably he wants a big part in Kamala's communism plan, which she's already put out there for a $1.7 trillion government price control socialist agenda. So Bernie Sanders rolls into the DNC. Listen to what Bernie Sanders, by the way, has not changed his tune. He changed it a little bit. Listen to what he said yesterday.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
Now, have you noticed something missing from that? It used to be that Bernie Sanders would get on TV and he'd get on the debate stage and he'd get in front of people and he would rail against the millionaires and the billionaires. It was always millionaires and billionaires. It's all Donald Trump supports millionaires and billionaires, but not the working class. Well, now He's changed it up. He dropped the millionaires. It's all just about the billionaires.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
And the reason he no longer rags on the millionaires, the reason he no longer attacks the millionaires, the reason he's only attacking the billionaires is that in the last 14 years, Bernie Sanders has become a millionaire. And it's very difficult for Bernie Sanders to get on stage and rail against the millionaires in this country when he himself is a millionaire. His net worth well over $1 million, book deals and speaking engagements. He had a book tour where he was offering a $99 package, which included a meet and greet and an autographed book. $99. This is a guy who claims to be for the working class, for average Americans. He's charging $100 for an autographed book. I don't even charge $100 for an autographed book. Mark Hamill charges $400 for an autographed 8x10, but Bernie Sanders is a hypocrite. He used to rail against millionaires and billionaires until he became a millionaire, and now it's just billionaires he hates. And the really bizarre thing about this, and I don't know who the scheduler is at the DNC, I don't know who put these two back to back, but Bernie Sanders comes out and he screams about millionaires and billionaires. I'm sorry, he screams about billionaires. Once again, he is one. And the very next speaker is a billionaire, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. And not only is J.B. Pritzker, who follows up, listen, this is Bernie Sanders.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
And within minutes, like the next on the agenda, J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, billionaire, walks on out on the stage, almost as if on cue. And not only is this billionaire speaking on stage at the DNC after Bernie Sanders said billionaires suck, he alluded to the fact that he was a billionaire.
Donald Trump thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity.
Okay, now again, this is ironic because somebody said we need to have Bernie Sanders and J.B. Pritzker back to back so the message can be billionaires are bad, and then a billionaire can come out here and say, Donald Trump's not a billionaire, I'm a billionaire, he's stupid. Man, if that's not the pot calling the kettle black, I mean, that is the worst. That's the worst possible timing for that comment. Also, J.B. Pritzker is railing against Donald Trump, claiming he's not a real billionaire. The only reason J.B. Pritzker is a billionaire is because his family is rich. They own the Hyatt hotel chain. He didn't create the Hyatt hotel chain. He was born into massive amounts of wealth. J.B. Pritzker is a hotel magnate child. He is basically Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton is filthy rich, not because she's really done anything, although her last album was insane. Loved it. And now she's DJing too. I know she gets some DJ gigs. And who didn't love The Simple Life? Anyway, but Paris Hilton and J.B. Pritzker got rich the exact same way. So don't think J.B. Pritzker coming out here and attacking Donald Trump for being a billionaire when he took millions of dollars and turned them into billions of dollars is legitimate. It's a false claim. This guy inherited the Hyatt hotel fortune, decided, I'm going to go be governor of Illinois. God knows how much money he's getting as a result of being governor of Illinois, one of the most corrupt states in the entire country. And then he goes on stage to declare proudly, I'm a real billionaire. I'm the guy Bernie Sanders is telling you to avoid. I'm the guy Bernie Sanders is saying we need to tax out the wazoo. When Bernie Sanders says billionaires are destroying America and they're evil people, he's talking about me, not Donald Trump. That guy's not a real billionaire. I am. Not because of anything I did, just because I was born to the right people at the right time. I'm telling you, this DNC is a debacle. It's a debacle. That's what they should call it, the debacle National Convention. The big thing, though, Oh, wait, we should probably talk about Doug Emhoff. So there's a couple things that happened. They had some big speakers last night. And again, we are going to be live tonight. It's so funny because last night we were live and they did a better job. It still didn't end till like 11:30. Barack Obama was long-winded and totally unnecessary. I think 11:35 is when we finally wrapped up Eastern time. But we watched it. It was fun. We made a lot of jokes. There were some things I couldn't believe these people were saying. Doug Emhoff came out and he gave a speech. We're going to do it again tonight. And tonight, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to tonight because tonight's speakers are not the kind of speakers that we had last night, like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, who are just so full of themselves and egomaniacal that you just, it's a whole different vibe. Tonight, you're going to have what I like to call the clown car of DNC speakers. You're going to have three people who are hilarious without even trying. You're going to have three people walk out on stage and they are going to make you laugh and guffaw and they're going to cause massive amounts of entertainment and they're going to do it all without trying. One of them is Nancy Pelosi.
Bill.
That's probably a little preview of her remarks tonight. Another one is Tim Walz.
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
And we all know about his flamboyant hand gestures and his little dances and things. And then Bill Clinton, who is, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen Bill Clinton in years. Bill Clinton has been hiding away. He's been, God knows what he's been doing or who he's been doing. But Bill Clinton's getting old. He's 77, I think, and he's aged, and he's not the guy that he used to be. But they're giving him this primetime spot on Wednesday night with Tim Walz. And the interesting thing about Bill Clinton is I have to believe he's kind of at that age. Everybody gets to an age where they just don't care anymore. And Bill Clinton didn't care when he was in his 40s. Bill Clinton was, like we all know the stories, about how he was fraternizing with all these women and how he was a philanderer and Monica Lewinsky and the cigar and the Oval Office. We know all that. The thing about Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton didn't give he didn't give a rat's patootie when he was 40. I can't imagine now that he's 77, he cares anymore. He probably cares less. And as a result, I believe that the things he's going to do and the things he's going to say are going to be gold. I mean, I think we're going to get some real gems coming from Bill Clinton tonight. So we have those are the biggies. Nancy Pelosi, Bill Clinton, Tim Walz. Pete Buttigieg will be speaking. Also, I could say something about Pete Buttigieg and Tim Walz sharing the stage on the same night, but I'm not gonna. I'll just leave it. Let me take a sip of my coffee and I'll let it hang there. Delicious. Anyway, so last night, Doug Emhoff, who is I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about Doug Emhoff when he became the first gentleman of the United States of America. I haven't learned a lot about Doug Emhoff in the 3.5 years since he's been the first gentleman of the United States of America. And last night, I learned way more about Doug Emhoff than I ever could have cared to know. This guy told a story that lasted way too long. He got way too personal, way too quickly, and he's not the most dynamic speaker. I thought at first it was funny. He had this frat boy thing going for him. He had this kind of everyday guy thing. But as the story progressed and went on and on and on, I just felt bad for him and sorry for him, and then I got tired. But I will say there's one thing about Doug. I thought it was funny when he talked about his former wife, Kirsten, I don't know how you pronounce it, because he was married. Kamala is his second wife. He had a wife before that, and they got divorced.
I got married, became a dad to Cole and Ella. Unfortunately, I went through a divorce, but eventually started worrying about how I would make it all work.
Unfortunately went through a divorce is about half the story. Yes, he unfortunately went through a divorce, but he unfortunately went through a divorce because he cheated on the nanny and got her pregnant. And as a result of cheating on the nanny and getting her pregnant, what happened was he got a divorce. And the woman that she was I want to say she was European or something. Anyway, she was this woman. She was the nanny for Cole. I mean, he even mentioned them. It's kind of adding insult to injury.
I got married, became a dad to Cole and Ella. unfortunately went through a divorce, but eventually started worrying about how I would make it all work.
So how am I going to make all this work? I know. I'll marry Kamala Harris and ride her coattails for the rest of my life. So yeah, so Cole and Ella were his kids, and they had a nanny. And I guess the nanny was attractive, or he was going through some kind of crisis. I don't know what it was, but he got with the nanny, and he wasn't careful about it. He was kind of, I guess you would just say a free spirit about it. And she became pregnant. Now, I've heard different stories because people always ask, what happened to the kid? Does he have a bastard child somewhere? Because we feel like there's we know Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has that bastard child. Remember that he refused to mention, and that Joe Biden and the White House refused to even mention in his list of grandchildren. He had 6 grandchildren when really he had 7. And now all of a sudden they're one big happy family. But he had sex with a stripper in Louisiana and impregnated her and had a child with her, and Joe Biden never even wanted to mention it. So of course, when you hear that Doug Emhoff's in a similar situation, you have to ask what happened to the kid. And I've heard that the nanny did not keep the child. I have no confirmation of that. That's what I heard. I've also heard somebody say she has a child who is a similar age to a child that would have been conceived during her time with Doug Emhoff. So I don't know. I've not run any DNA tests. I've not done any. Again, that's the only thing I know about Doug Emhoff. And after last night, and after the speech, and after looking at the polls, and after seeing how Kamala Harris is not getting the DNC bump that she thought she would, and after hearing about this dream team that may be forming between Donald Trump and JFK, I don't think I'm going to have to worry about Doug Emhoff anymore. I think after January of next year, Doug Emhoff is going to be the answer to some Jeopardy question in about 5 or 6 years. He's going to be tossed into the dustbin of history, and we're just going to be waiting to hear about his next affair, which will end his marriage probably with Kamala Harris. So anyways, that was Doug Emhoff's speech, and then we got to the main event. The main event being Michelle Obama. Barack Obama, turns out, wasn't even the main event. Michelle Obama was the one everybody wanted to see. Michelle Obama is the glamour queen of the Democrat Party. And I did my TikTok about this earlier today because I do TikToks. I'm a TikToker. I don't know if you know that. I'm a TikToker because, yes, and I know what you're saying. It's a Chinese spy app. They're going to take it away, yada, yada, yada. They're stealing your information. Dude, my information is there. People are like, they're scanning your face. Do you know how many photos and videos? If you want to scan my face, I put my face out there every single day. It's different when you're someone like me. I'm not what you would call a private person. Pretty much every aspect of my life since I was 20 years old has been broadcast on a daily basis. Every single day I would wake up, I would go to some place with cameras and microphones, and I would talk about myself. So I'm not 100% concerned about, I'm pretty sure the Chinese, if they wanted to create a replica of me, some kind of cyborg Mark Kaye, I don't know why anyone would want that, but if they want to do that, I'm pretty sure they could find all my information. It's out there. But anyway, so I was TikToking today, and I did a TikTok about the 3 reasons why Kamala, oh, wait, there it is right there. Hold on, I'm hearing myself. Why Kamala Harris was not, shut up, me. There we go. About why Kamala Harris was not there when Barack Obama and Michelle Obama were finally giving her the public endorsement that she'd craved. They didn't give her a public endorsement when she got chosen by Joe Biden, handpicked by Joe Biden to be his heir apparent. They got some BS phone endorsement that we still think is fake. And it wasn't until 4 weeks later, that they showed up at the DNC. They didn't go out to Philadelphia when she was there. They didn't go out to Atlanta when she was there. They didn't go out to Wisconsin or Michigan. They didn't go to any of her rallies. They didn't go to a single one. They were not on stage with her, promoting her to the masses. They waited till the DNC. They waited till they had an international spotlight on them, because with the Obamas, it's all about them. And Michelle Obama is a much bigger star in the DNC. Having Michelle Obama, at the DNC giving a speech would be like having Taylor Swift performing at JoJo Siwa's birthday party. That's the difference in how people in the Democrat Party see Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris. And so Kamala Harris didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be the second most popular African-American woman or Indian African-American, whatever. Well, you know, she was Indian, then she became a black person. It's just still one of my favorite quotes of all time. Anyway, so she didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be put on the back burner at her own event. So she said, I'm not going to be there. Michelle can have the floor. I'll come back on Thursday when it's all about me. Same thing with Barack Obama. Barack Obama doesn't like to share the stage either. It's bad enough he had to share it with the single most popular woman in the party, his wife, but he didn't want the camera panning away to Kamala Harris every time he spoke. He didn't want to say, Kamala's going to be great. And then the camera would pan to Kamala and he'd be like, no, back here, on me. I'm the main event. Their egos are so huge. Plus, let's be honest, they didn't want her anyway. We all read the New York Post story. The New York Post. Barack Obama does not want Kamala Harris to be the nominee because he doesn't think she can win. And I hate to say Barack Obama's right, but Barack Obama's right. She can't win. He knew it back then. Joe Biden probably knew it too. And as an FU, as a big middle finger, as Joe Biden was getting stabbed in the back, he decided to endorse Kamala Harris publicly before anyone could tell him not to, thus transforming her into the candidate, causing the DNC to go into a stir because now, great, we got to hide this woman and try to figure out a way to shut her up because we can't have her speak. If she speaks, it's over. Barack Obama knows Kamala Harris intimately for years. He did not want her to be the nominee. She's the nominee. So he's like, fine, I'll come and I'll endorse her, but she can't be there because she's going to embarrass me. Also, let's be honest. The last time Barack Obama endorsed a woman for president, it was Hillary Clinton in 2016. And we all know how that turned out. So anyway, Michelle Obama came out and she said some quizzical things. And the interesting thing about the Obamas is they think they're still broke Obamas. They still think it's broke Barack and poor Michelle. They're not anymore. These people are worth over $100 million. They have multiple multi-million-dollar dwellings all over in the most prestigious neighborhoods. They have one in downtown D.C. near Colorama, which is the ultimate place for the Washington elite to live. They have one in Martha's Vineyard, and we all know about Martha's Vineyard. They have one in Hawaii near Oprah and The Rock, I think. They have one in, where else? Manhattan, I think they've got one. They've got one in Chicago. They are real estate moguls. They've got all the money they're getting from Netflix for creating all these liberal movies and whatnot. They're rolling in dough. But they still think they're broke Obama and poor Michelle. And they say stuff on stage which sounds great until you realize that they're the exact tyrants that they're railing against, much like Bernie Sanders no longer can talk about millionaires. Here was Michelle Obama yesterday on the stage at the DNC.
My mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning.
All right, first of all, if I were Michelle Obama, I wouldn't say everyone else around us was drowning because, still not sure how that chef drowned while paddleboarding out back of your Martha's Vineyard estate. Drowning may not be the best word. But she said, my parents were suspicious of people who had more than they needed. My parents were suspicious of people who had more than they needed. I'm pretty sure she qualifies. I'm pretty sure her mother, if she weren't dead, which we learned last night, she died, passed away. Very sad. Very sad. It was like dead mom night. Everyone brought up their dead moms. Kamala brought up her dead mom. Anna Navarro brought up her dead mom. Oh, I'm sorry. Kamala wasn't there. Anna Navarro brought up both of their dead moms. And then Barack and Michelle talked about her dead. Anyway, drowning's probably that's not the right word to use. Anyway, but her mom, it would be suspicious of her and Barack. Where did you get all this money and why do you still have it? Why aren't you sharing it? Why aren't you spreading the wealth around? Remember Joe the plumber? Joe the plumber walked right up to Barack Obama and said, "Why are you raising my taxes? Why are you taking this money from me?" And he goes, "We're trying to spread the wealth around." Okay. Do you really need 5 multi-million-dollar homes in Martha's Vineyard, in Hawaii, in Chicago, in New York? There's only 2 of you. You're empty nesters now. Both your kids are gone. What do you need? What do you need all this space for? Why don't you spread that wealth around a little bit? Because they don't really want to spread the wealth around. They're happy with their wealth, but they want you to remember back when they were poor. They want you to remember that they come from humble beginnings. And that if you're poor, it's good because you should be suspicious of rich people, not us. You shouldn't be suspicious of us or J.B. Pritzker or Bernie Sanders. Be suspicious of Donald Trump. Why? He's a billionaire. J.B. Pritzker's a billionaire. You're multimillionaires. You're up there in the 100,000 rank. We're not supposed to be suspicious of you. You're not rich enough for us to be suspicious of. Then she came out and she started a chant of her own. She had this great idea where she was going to have everybody start chanting, "Do something, do something, do something." And it worked. Everyone started chanting, "Do something, do something, do something." Yeah, and she was like, "Look, if you're sick and tired of this, do something. If you're sick and tired of that, do something. Don't just sit around complaining, do something." Lady, we've been chanting "do something" for 4 years. The border's wide open. Criminal elements are pouring over, as is fentanyl. Do something. We've got crime running rampant in our inner cities, not just the urban areas, but it's spilling out into the suburban population. Do something. Carjackings are up. Shoplifting is up. There's people that are getting snatched off the street because human trafficking is a bigger problem in this country than it's ever been before. Do something. The economy is through the roof. I'm sorry, the inflation is through the roof. The economy is tanking. Our 401ks are empty. Last week, the stock market crashed. Do something. What about the war in Ukraine? It's been raging for over 2 years. Israel got invaded. American hostages are being kept in Gaza. We also know that there are American sympathizers behind enemy lines in Afghanistan where you ridiculously left in what was one of the worst military exercises in our nation's history. Do something. Do something. Prices are through the roof. Eggs are $9 a dozen. Gas is ridiculously expensive. Baby food, everything. The cost of borrowing money to buy a home has made it impossible for Gen Z to buy homes. They can't afford the money. They couldn't afford the home if they wanted to. Do something. Just take your own, do something. We've been yelling at Kamala Harris. We've been yelling at Joe Biden. We've been yelling at the Senate. We've been yelling at all of these people for 4 years to do something. Do something. Do something. Kamala, do something. Do something. They do nothing. They do nothing. They know nothing. They have nothing. Well, except multiple multi-million-dollar homes scattered all across the country. Listen, we're going to get to Donald Trump and RFK and the deal that could be being made right now. They could be wheeling and dealing right now to create a dream team to crush Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and deliver this country back to greatness in November. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I just realized, and I want to add, look at this. We got a $20 super chat on YouTube from Yupin Rankin. And Yupin, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We figured out the other day how to publicly thank our super chatters. And so if you leave us a super chat on YouTube, we will publicly thank you. Also, if you leave us a Rumble rant, we will do that as well. But we are an independent broadcast. Now, we are not affiliated with the corporate networks. We're not affiliated with the millionaires and the billionaires. We are our own entity. And we love what we're doing, and we think it's important, and we're happy to keep doing it. Every single day I come in here and create not just this podcast, every single, for you guys, but also we have video content and we have audio content and we have, TikToks. We got all sorts of stuff that we're going. I'm writing books constantly. I want to make sure that I can use my skill set, which is to communicate and convey the importance of being on the right political side of history and making sure that you're doing everything you can to protect and save this republic. Hence, Mark Kaye saves the republic. That's my contribution. And any contribution you can make to help me do that is much appreciated. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go like drive for DoorDash or something, and then I won't be able to talk to you every single day. And nobody wants that, especially DoorDash, because I might even be like, oh, what do we got here? I'll have one waffle fry. No one's going to miss one waffle fry, are they? I'd be the worst DoorDasher in the world, and I'd gain so much weight. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But we appreciate all of the donations. We appreciate all the super chats. We appreciate the Rumble rants, and we appreciate all the purchases too from the Mark Kaye shop. MarkKayeShop.com has been incredible since we relaunched. We have had just an amazing response, and I know, I know a lot of it is because what we do is we try to bring you stuff that you'll actually like and wear and enjoy. The Brighter Future collection from Trump's RNC speech. People love this stuff. These shirts, first of all, they're comfortable, they're high quality, they're warm, they're cozy, and this quote is just great. And it's such a conversation piece. I've had people say, oh, I wore my shirt out the other day, and people are like, what is that? Bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before. That's a great quote.
America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then they love the MAGA King stuff. And they love the Mark Kaye Saves the Republic merch. These decals and mug. Look, I drink from this mug every single day. And a lot of people are saying, is that the same mug? In full transparency, no. This is an electric ember mug. But what I did was I bought a decal and I stuck it on there and it looks like I have the Mark Kaye Show mug. But if you don't want the ember mug and you want the regular mug, it's there for you as well. Katriot gear. For all of the Katriots that are watching and listening and wanting to show their Katriotism and interact with other Katriots and let everybody know, hey, I'm a Katriot, are you? We have all kinds of great Katriot gear, from the tank tops to the t-shirts to the hoodies. It's fantastic. And then the Mark Kaye signature line featuring my favorite new hat, which I don't take off ever. Well, okay, I take it off. Like, I don't shower in it, but I would, if I did, I would look great in the shower. That sounded a little weirder. That sounded better in my head than it. Anyway, MarkKayeShop.com is where you go. MarkKayeShop.com to get all of those items. And don't forget to use coupon code Merry Christmas. You can use coupon code Stolen Valor. Either one of those will get you 10% off of your entire order. So we definitely urge you. To do that as well. All right, listen. There's a lot of issues. With the Democrats, and the DNC is really kind of bringing them up. It's kind of bubbling up to the surface. And I want to show you something, because everybody talked about Kamala Harris's honeymoon, and everybody talked about Kamala Harris getting a bump. And then it was like the DNC. In fact, Donald Trump even said, people were like complaining that Donald Trump wasn't out there doing enough stuff. Donald Trump wasn't out there doing enough rallies, or as many rallies as he used to. And Donald Trump said, look, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till after the DNC. The DNC, she's going to get a bump. This honeymoon's going to continue. After the DNC, I'll go back on the road. Well, it's not really happening. Look at this. This is the Poly Market. Poly Market is the betting market, and they have all their actuaries, whatever. This is the updated Poly Market. This was after day 2 of the DNC. This was after Michelle Obama came out and yelled, do something, and Barack Obama gave his fantastically amazing oratory, whatever it was. Look, Donald Trump jumped up 3 points. The DNC is having the adverse effect on Kamala Harris's campaign. When people from the DNC, not Kamala, because she won't tell you what's going on in the country, she won't tell you what they're all about. Kamala Harris still has not sat down for an interview. She still has not sat down to talk to reporters. She hasn't done a press conference. She hasn't even given a full speech at the DNC in prime time on every single network. No. But everybody else in the Democrat Party has come out, and you know what they've talked about? They've talked about abortion for 2 days. They haven't mentioned the border. They haven't mentioned the economy. They haven't mentioned jobs. They've talked about abortion. Everybody's been talking about abortion. Andy Bashir's been talking about abortion, and all these other clowns have been coming out talking about abortion. It's been the Abortion National Convention. And that's not printing with people, because people don't care about abortion. They care about their jobs and their money and their 401k and their savings. And they care about the illegal immigrants who are coming over the border with fentanyl and committing crimes. That's what they care about. And that's why the longer the DNC goes on, the better Donald Trump's poll numbers become. 52%, up 3 percentage points. That means he was at 49 and she was at 50. That means he was losing yesterday, according to Poly Market. Today, he's winning. Here's another one. Rasmussen. This was the overnight. Check this out. Rasmussen, since the DNC started, Rasmussen on the 19th, the day after, Donald Trump got a 10-point bump. Now, that's pretty big, but it's going to extend his lead over Kamala Harris immensely. The more people hear from Democrats, the less they like them. The more that people hear what the Democrats have planned for this country, the less they want to vote for Democrats. And poor Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, now of, gosh, I don't even know what. I only know is Don Lemon is walking around with a microphone, but I have no idea what he's doing this for. I see him on Instagram and I see him on YouTube. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's independent like me. Anyway, Don Lemon is rolling around looking for people who are supporting Kamala Harris, looking for black people who are supporting Kamala Harris. He just can't do it.
How are you feeling about the election?
I'm going for Trump. I feel like every time they don't want somebody who is good for us to win, they throw somebody black in our face thinking that's going to like make us vote for the black person.
I voted for Obama because he was black. I don't want to vote for her because she's the first black woman to run for president or to win.
I don't vote.
Well, I want Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I want Donald Trump.
Why do you apologize?
Well, I know nobody likes him, but we had good times with Donald Trump.
I'm running for Trump, so.
You are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why?
Yeah. I don't know. I just always been a fan of his, so that's what I'm running for.
I used to be against Trump. I used to live in Virginia. I saw the bad side of it, but really moving to Cleveland, but I saw the other side of it.
I'm supporting Trump.
You are? Mm-hmm. Because?
Because it has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change, and now I vote more for what fits me better as a person rather than voting for the black person or voting for the first woman. So,
what do you think about Kamala Harris?
I think they say she phony and fake. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, I'm like Trump saying, you know, what are you? You know, so I'm not feeling her. People get mad about it. I'm just not feeling her.
I don't like her the way she speaks, the giddiness, the laughing. Everything's a joke, and it's not a joke. We're in trouble.
I'm going for Trump. Kamala was on Biden's team, and I don't like Biden. Gas wasn't this high when Trump was our president. Food wasn't this high. I'm going for Trump.
Man, I love that. I love black people who will look at Don Lemon and say, I'm going for Trump. I know I sound like Jerry Maguire. I love black people. But it's so true. It's so true. The narrative is being demolished. The whole Joe Biden, if you're black, you got to vote for Democrats. If you're black, you can't vote for Trump. That whole narrative is people see through it, right?
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
That had to have been the catalyst. That had to have been the beginning of this mass migration from the blindly voting for Democrats to voting for the candidate that will help you. And this is really important. You know, I say this all the time. In fact, I think my next YouTube video is going to be about this. The thing that people realize is you shouldn't vote actually for Kamala Harris. For several reasons. You shouldn't vote for Donald Trump either. You shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. You shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. You should vote for you. Vote for you. It's your vote. I don't understand that. People, they look at voting like it's some weird, complex thing. It's not. What's the biggest issue in your life right now? I don't have any money. Great. Which candidate is going to give you more money? Well, Kamala Harris has been in office for 3.5 years and everything's more expensive. Gas is more expensive. My 401k is nowhere near as valuable as it used to be. My home value is nowhere near what it used to be. My taxes are through the roof. My income is not being raised at all. In fact, I think I might get laid off. Donald Trump, however, when he was president, gas was low, prices were low. I got a big tax cut. My company cut me a check for $1,000 because Donald Trump was able to help them save millions and millions on their taxes. My investments were high. The stock market was rollicking. Everything was golden. So if money's my biggest problem and I'm voting for more money, then my vote has to go to Donald Trump. I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I'm voting for myself to become financially secure. Great. What's another problem? Another problem is crime. Yeah? I'm really worried about crime. I'm worried about drugs coming into our country. I'm worried about immigrants. I live in a city, and every time I walk my kids through the city, I'm tripping over homeless immigrants. There's homeless immigrants that are standing on the street corner. They're sleeping on the street corner. They're taking over all of the hotels downtown. They're chasing away tourists. And when tourists leave, tourists don't want to go stay at these places anymore because there's too many illegals there. And when the illegals take over and the tourists leave, their tax dollars also go too. And in New York, not only are you losing money from tourism, but you're spending $5 billion on an illegal immigrant problem that you don't need to have because you could take that $5 billion and build a wall. Voila, problem solved. Okay, great. So if you want safer cities and safer streets, will you vote for the guy who wants to build the wall, keep the immigrants out, deport all of the ones that are here illegally? Or do you want to vote for Kamala Harris, who's been the border czar for 3.5 years? And in that 3.5 years, everything has just gotten worse. Well, I'm voting for myself and my safety, which means I have to select Donald Trump. You're not voting for Donald Trump. You're selecting him because he's going to make your life better. Or you're selecting Kamala Harris because you're a transgender that wants to have multiple abortions. That's really the only reason I would think of for anyone to vote for her. Byron Donalds, by the way, who's a black person. He's a black person. Byron Donalds, Florida Representative Byron Donalds, great guy, by the way, great guy. Just won his primary again. He's going to be representing the great people of Florida at least for 2 months. I mean, I assume so. I think he's got a pretty solid chance. Byron Donalds was in the running for Speaker of the House. He was in the running for Vice President, and he has a solid head on his shoulders. He's at the DNC, and they asked him about Kamala Harris, and they asked him about what she's doing and this whole platform, and he said something that I think shows why all of these polls are pointing to Donald Trump. He said something that makes me believe this is why Rasmussen has Donald Trump going up 10 points. This is why Polymarket now has Donald Trump in the lead. Here's what Byron Donalds told reporters.
I've never seen a presidential campaign where the person...
Wait, what happened? Wait a minute. Hold on. My bad. Here's Byron Donalds.
I've never seen a presidential campaign where the person running won't tell you what they think, won't tell you what they're going to do, won't even sit and talk to the press. They are hiding Kamala Harris. I've been saying for a while now, what we are witnessing is a Hollywood premiere. For one of those terrible Hollywood blockbuster movies that everybody says is good. All of the critics say it's great. It's got 3 stars, 4 stars. Until the movie opens and people see it and they realize that the movie absolutely sucks. That's what we're dealing with.
I wonder what movie he's talking about. There's a bunch of those that I could think of. There's a bunch of those. Maybe it's that horrible movie about the imaginary friends. What was that called? If. Remember If? Oh man, everybody got sold a bag of goods on that movie. That movie was horrible. Anyway, but Byron Donalds saying, look, they're trying to sell us this movie. They're trying to sell us this blockbuster. They're saying, oh, there's these big name stars, these big actors in it, and it's going to be the highlight of the summer. Everyone's going to love it. And then you go see it. You're like, this movie sucks. What a waste. I want my money back. And I'll never go see another movie like this again. And the cast isn't even that good. You got Kamala Harris, who's been pointless for 3.5 years. And then you got this other guy. Oh, this other guy, Tim Walz. Tim Walz, who they pulled off the streets of Minneapolis and they threw into prime time. They threw him in this blockbuster movie. And all we know about the guy is that he lies about everything.
They interviewed each other. They talked about, white guy tacos. But even in that, Tim Walz lied because the truth is he actually won many cook-offs in Minnesota for Al Franken when he was a senator. And what was he cooking? Tacos with, green chilies and like how you actually make a taco. And he won the cook-off. But they are lying to the American people.
Tim Walz is lying about a lot more than white guy tacos, by the way. Tim Walz lied about everything. He lies about everything. He lied about his military service, stolen valor. We all know that story. And that story, by the way, don't let that one die because they're still out there at the DNC in their, what do you call it? They're introducing, God, I had a brain fart. I had a little Biden there. They're introducing him as a sergeant major or whatever rank he claims he was that he never was. He's standing behind his lies about stolen valor, and that's kind of sickening and despicable, but he's doing it anyway. In addition to that, he's now lying about IVF. He lied about stolen valor. He lied about white guy tacos, and now he's lying about IVF. Listen to this unearthed video that we found from just like a week ago.
Yeah, first of all, it was up to him. I wouldn't have a family because of IVF and the things that we need to do reproductive. My kids were born through that that way.
That's a lie. That's all. There's no evidence that Tim Walz's kids were born through IVF. Either it's a lie or it's the first time he's bringing it forward, but pretty much it's a lie. IVF and Tim Walz, the only reason he brings it up is because he's trying to tell everyone JD Vance wants to ban IVF. He's lying about how his kids were born. Who does that? He's lying about the tacos he makes. Instead of saying, he could have easily said, you know what? I actually want I have an award-winning taco recipe. And it involves chilies and stuff. He didn't do that. He wanted to He wanted to lie. He wanted to look like he wanted to supplicate himself a little bit to Kamala Harris. No, I eat white guy tacos. That's what I'm a white guy taco eater. It's unnecessary and it's stupid. And it just makes him look like a big fat liar. And JD Vance is playing off of that. JD Vance was asked yesterday about Tim Walz and how he's preparing for a debate against him. He had a great line.
Well, I found a good friend from back home who embellishes and lies a lot, and I'm having him stand in for Tim Walz. That's what we're doing during our debate.
I mean, I have a good friend who embellishes and lies a lot. We all have one of those. And I'm having him stand in. And I'm practicing with him because that's the best debate prep. That's the best debate prep for Tim Walz. All right, listen, we got to get to the leads. I've been chit-chatting for like almost an hour, or I haven't even gotten to the lead story, which is RFK and Donald Trump coming together to form a dream team. Now, this is a story that started bubbling up yesterday, and it started bubbling up because RFK Jr. has a running mate. He's a legitimate candidate. He's trying to get on the ballots in every state, although the Democrats are fighting him on that. And that's the story that we'll get to in just a minute. But he has a running mate. You know, everyone's got a running mate. Donald Trump has JD Vance. Kamala Harris has Tim Walz. And RFK Jr. has Nicole Shanahan. And Nicole Shanahan is running for vice president against these other, people. And she's on the ticket with RFK Jr. Well, she was on a podcast. I forget the name of the podcast. It'll come up here in a minute. And the guy interviewing her asked about what they're going to do moving forward because they're battling to get on the ballot in every single state. They can't get on the debate stage. Fox News has shut them out of the debate. Doesn't matter because now there isn't going to be a Fox News debate. Why? Well, because Kamala Harris didn't want to debate. Kamala Harris had an opportunity to meet the people, meet the media, answer questions, talk about what she's got planned for the United States, talk about her really bizarre budget-breaking $1.7 trillion economic plan that includes government price controls, labeled communism by just about everybody, including the New York Post. No, she opted out of that. So now RFK is like, well, I didn't get on the debate stage. Now there's not going to be a debate. They're kicking me off the ballots in all of these swing states. What am I supposed to do? So Nicole Shanahan was asked about it, and she gave a very honest and interesting answer. Listen to this.
There's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Impact Theory, by the way, is the name of the podcast. Impact Theory. So Nicole Shanahan gets out. And now keep in mind, it's very interesting to me that it's her, because if you want to float an idea, if you want to put something out there in the ether, not commit to, if you want to be non-committal about something and just see what the fan reaction is, then you use a surrogate. If RFK Jr. went on a podcast and said, I'm contemplating dropping out of the race and supporting Donald Trump, he'd have no choice but to do that. If you have a VP on an obscure podcast, I mean, let's be honest, it could be a huge podcast. I have no idea. I'm only really focused on my own podcast. But it could, on this podcast, if she floats the idea, if she puts the bubble up there and they gauge the reaction, if she sticks the thermometer in there just to see how high the mercury goes, it's not something you've committed to, but you could get a really good inkling of what it would mean moving forward. So she goes on this podcast and says, we have two ways forward. Number one, we just stick with it. We form this new party and we go up against Donald Trump and JD Vance. We go up against Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and we run the risk of helping Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get elected because we draw votes away from Donald Trump in the crucial swing states like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, like Michigan, like Georgia, like Nevada, like Arizona, where a handful of votes one way or the other could be decisive. A handful of votes one way or the other could be the deciding factor between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And if RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan are in there drawing just even 10,000 votes away from one side or the other, it could have historic implications on what happens to this country. And I firmly believe that RFK Jr. isn't in this for the glory. I believe he's in it because he feels he has some kind of contribution he can make to the United States of America. And I believe that because he's already rich. He's already got a name. He doesn't need the money. He's already been ostracized by his entire party. Why would you sacrifice everything if it wasn't something you truly believed? Plus, he's been attacked over and over again just for his thoughts and his beliefs. Just like Donald Trump. He sees the government being weaponized every single day by the Democrats. He sees the government being weaponized every single day by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Merrick Garland and the FBI and the DOJ and the CIA and the IRS and the FTC and the FD and all of them. Every single three-letter alphabet agency that you've got out there has been turned into a Gestapo by Joe Biden to go after his political adversaries, and RFK Jr. is one of them. Why? Because he didn't want to get vaccinated. He didn't want to get the government-mandated vaccine, and he didn't think it was a smart idea, and he said so. And just like Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers and everyone else who spoke out against it, he got attacked by his own party, a party that his relatives, that his father and his uncle helped create, but would today find totally unrecognizable. So what do? Do you fight this losing battle and potentially put your enemies in power? Or do you say, look, we've got the opportunity here. And I don't want to say I told you so, but if you go back to last week, I literally had a podcast saying RFK Jr. will decide the next president. And this week, RFK Jr. is contemplating whether or not he sticks it out, potentially handing the presidency to Kamala Harris, or whether he calls it quits and joins forces with Donald Trump. RFK Jr. will determine the presidency. And Nicole Shanahan was on Fox News earlier today, doubling down on this whole thing. This wasn't just a whim. This wasn't just a thought that popped into her head. She's sticking to it.
We are willing to work with anyone who is sincere in their endeavor to fix and address this issue.
Do you believe the Trump campaign and Trump himself is sincere? Do you see a home? You talk about this as being Bobby's decision. Do you see a home for RFK Jr. in the Trump administration, Health and Human Services, something to that extent?
I would fully support it. I would fully support a strong partnership dedicated to this issue.
A strong partnership dedicated to the issue. Of course, Health and Human Services would be the most natural place for RFK Jr. because Health and Human Services and the vaccine and vaccinations and the pandemic and COVID and all that, that's been his number one party platform. And the ability for people to have autonomy over their own bodies, which is something you think the Democrats would be all about, autonomy over their own medical decisions, medical freedom, if you will, that's been the crux of why RFK got into this race and why RFK is still in this race. And so it would only make sense, but he's open to anything. The question is, would Donald Trump be open to such a plan? Well, they asked him. Here's what he said.
Can I ask you about RFK? Because just moments ago, his running mate said that they were considering endorsing you. Have you considered him for a role in the administration, and what role would that be?
Well, we haven't, but I would love that endorsement because I've always liked him.
Would you also consider putting him in the administration?
You're asking me a very unusual question. I haven't been asked that question yet. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. I probably would if something like that would happen.
Again, that is not a commitment. That is an air balloon. That is what we've seen here now live in the media is RFK Jr. sending a smoke signal up in the air to the Donald Trump campaign. Would you be willing to work with me if I get out of the race? And I tell my supporters, we're supporting you. And instead of drawing votes away from you and giving them to Kamala Harris, basically, I would be just giving you the votes and pushing you over the edge to become president. That's the smoke signal that went up. And Donald Trump, with this CNN interview, interpreted it and sent up a smoke signal of his own. I like you. I've always liked you. I would consider it. I would definitely consider that. I would 100% consider putting you in my administration if we could work that kind of a deal. And so, ladies and gentlemen, what we have now is a potential dream team to clobber Kamala Harris. I don't think that they needed it. I don't think Donald Trump needed RFK's help, but I will say this. Every little bit helps. You know, you don't want it. You don't want to leave the votes to be counted for days and days and days. You don't want recounts over and over and over again. You want to solidly win the states that you need to win that will give you the presidency, that will give you the 270. And the interesting thing is, here's an interesting thing about this. RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan say, we would be willing to pull out of this race because we draw from Donald Trump. Here's what she said on the podcast.
There's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walz presidency because we draw votes from Trump.
Okay.
We draw somehow.
She's saying we draw votes from Trump. We draw more votes from Trump. Do they really draw more votes from Trump is my question. Because RFK Jr. is at the moment in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or at least he was yesterday, because he's battling to stay on the ballot in Pennsylvania. The state that everyone says will deliver Pennsylvania Avenue. Whoever wins Pennsylvania wins Pennsylvania Avenue. So RFK is in Harrisburg battling to stay on the ballot, not because Donald Trump is suing to keep him off the ballot, not because the Republicans are suing to keep him off the ballot, because the Democrats are suing to keep him off the ballot.
Hey, everybody. I'm at the state courthouse in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania this morning. I'm supposed to be in a meeting with community leaders on the south side of Chicago today talking about criminal justice reform, but I had to come here because the Democratic Party is suing me in Pennsylvania. And by the way, tomorrow I'm going to Mineola, Long Island, because they're suing me there too. They're suing me all over the country to try to keep me off the ballot. Unfortunately, in some of these states, we're running into judges who are highly politicized and who are very, very sympathetic, let me put it that way, to the DNC. And today, the judge was less than sympathetic to our side.
I have a question. If RFK draws more votes from Donald Trump, then why would the Democrats be so hell-bent on suing to keep him off the ballot? Why would these Democrat judges be so hell-bent on keeping RFK off the ballot in the swing state of Pennsylvania if he's drawing more votes from Trump? Wouldn't you want to keep him? I don't know that he is drawing more votes from Donald Trump, but I do know this. Getting RFK out of the way and having him tell his supporters, we're supporting Donald Trump and here's why, would be a feather in Donald Trump's cap, and it would be a boon. And RFK wouldn't have to worry about going around the country trying to fight these Democrats who have betrayed him.
The betrayal, I would say, of the values of the affiliation of the Democratic Party with working Americans, with cops, with firefighters, with union people, and its new affiliation with big tech, with Wall Street, with big data, big pharma, and this corrupt merger of state and corporate power. I'm a little disillusioned with the Democratic Party today, but that's why I decided to run as an independent. And God bless all of you, and God bless America.
Now, a lot of people are asking, where would RFK fit into the Trump presidency? And, of course, Health and Human Services would be the most natural position. I've heard a lot of people say CIA director, which is genius because RFK has publicly accused the CIA of being behind the assassination attempt. The assassination of, not attempt, he was assassinated, of his uncle and his father. He said, look, the CIA killed my uncle, John F. Kennedy, by the way, if you were wondering. The CIA killed my uncle, John F. Kennedy, and I can prove it. Man, then great. Cut a deal with RFK, have him drop out, have him support Donald Trump, and then put him in charge of the CIA. And then he can do whatever he wants. That to me is a genius plan. I saw somebody post that on X. I think, however, that the one big thing that we should do is we should make him press secretary. because his voice is so unique. I think it would definitely keep the press from asking too many questions because Anyway, listen, so that's the story that we're following. We don't know what's going to happen. We do know this. We know that Donald Trump is open to working with anybody. We know that Donald Trump isn't scared to work with Democrats or independents. Donald Trump will work with anybody who has his agenda and his best interests at heart. Donald Trump brought on Tulsi Gabbard to help with debate prep, even though there's one fewer debate now. Donald Trump worked with all of the governors during COVID. Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo praised Donald Trump publicly for all the work he did during COVID to help secure ventilators and hospital beds and all these other fantastic things that people needed during COVID. And they said Donald Trump did it. We called and he answered. Anything you need. Donald Trump will work with anyone, but he won't stand for is anybody who's just trying to block him with idiocy and lies. He's happy to sit down with anyone, talk with anyone, brainstorm with anyone who's truly whose goal is to help make America great again. If that's your goal, Donald Trump has time for you. Case in point, Donald Trump sat down with Theo Vaughn, comedian and podcaster. Theo Vaughn, I don't know his political affiliations. I know he sits and talks to anybody. I know that he's been on Joe Rogan a lot. I know that he interviewed Bernie Sanders last week. Well, he sat down with Donald Trump, and it was a fascinating interview. They talked about politics, sure, but they talked a lot about addiction and drugs. And Donald Trump opened up with a story that I knew. In fact, I put it, it's in my book, Go Trump Yourself, is the story of Donald Trump not drinking and the reason why. And it's because of his brother, Fred Trump, who he looked up to, his older brother, who died from alcoholism. And really was the reason to convince Donald Trump not to drink. Listen, I'm going to play you a clip of this. Listen, this is an amazing side of Donald Trump that I love to see and I love to hear. And this whole interview was taking a little umbrage with him calling him Donald, but hey, whatever, I get it. But Theo Vaughn opening up or getting Donald Trump to open up about his brother. And to me, that's such a unique clip because it shows Donald Trump not just as the iconic, what I call the top of the tree. You know, you have your family tree and you always think there's always some patriarch or matriarch or whatever that you imagine is at the top of the tree. But the fact of the matter is the tree goes on forever. But Donald Trump has always been a top of the tree kind of guy. And now you're starting to see he's not. He's just like everyone else. He had an older brother who he looked up to, an older brother who he idolized, an older brother who he lost too early, an older brother who taught him a valuable lesson and who was good looking, you know, great personality. Everybody loved him, but he suffered from alcoholism. And as a result, Donald Trump has never had a drink. He said he had such an influence on me. I never drink, I never smoke, I never do drugs, never have ever. And he said, I wouldn't be where I am today without that influence. And it's such a great interview. And that's the kind of thing that Donald Trump does. He sits down and he talks to anybody about anything if he thinks it's going to help. Then they got into talking about cocaine, which I never thought Donald Trump saying that's down and dirty to Theo Vaughn during a podcast interview would be on my 2024 scorecard. But hey, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. So look, things are looking up. I'm not saying look at the polls, but this DNC bump that Kamala Harris was supposed to get isn't happening. And the longer she puts off sitting down with the press and the longer she puts off talking to the media and the longer she puts off explaining herself and the more debates she cancels and the more she lets these surrogates come out on stage, you think that, you had the superstars of the party last night, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, come out and deliver what everyone was expecting them to deliver. A lot of hype, a lot of hope, a lot of vision, and zero substance, because that's what they did for years. You have that going on, and now all of a sudden you're going to put up Bill Clinton, you're going to put up Nancy Pelosi, and you're going to put up Tim Walz. I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump goes up 2 or 3 more points after this. And the whole problem with this is that Kamala Harris has been in power. In fact, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama were in the White House for 8 years with Joe Biden, who was there for 8 years. Okay, you have an interlude of 4 where Donald Trump comes in, cleans everything up, and then Joe Biden comes right back. And we all know that Barack Obama was pulling the strings. They dragged Kamala Harris into this mess. So really, the same people have been in charge of this ridiculous situation we call the United States of America for 16 years. Without the 4 of Donald. In fact, CNN, their guy, I forget his name, but he was the George Bush guy. He basically said the same thing.
She's in the White House right now. Democrats have controlled the White House for 12 of the last 16 years. And for all of the talk about division and the problems in the country and people are hurting, Democrats have mostly controlled this country. Trump had it for 4. The Obamas and Biden had it for the rest of the time. And somehow it's still all Trump's fault, and somehow she hasn't been at the center of it. So to me, that's still the glaring hole in this campaign that hasn't yet been solved at the convention. How do you explain all of the problems that will be solved by the person who is currently in there for the last 3.5 years, who is supposed to already be working on solving it?
Yeah, she hadn't solved the problem in 3.5 years. Joe Biden and Barack Obama haven't solved the problem in 16. How is this Donald Trump's fault? How is it, Donald? We know Kamala Harris is an equal partner with Joe Biden. We know that because Susan Rice told us.
Kamala Harris has been an integral architect and executor of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration.
And they've done nothing. And as we all heard from Michelle Obama, get up and start yelling at them. Tell them to do something. Do something! Do something! They're not going to do anything. Actually, let's be honest. They've done enough. All right, listen. We got to wrap this up, but we will be back tonight, 9 o'clock, prime time, as we get Tim Walz, Bill Clinton, and Nancy Pelosi. Man, you couldn't ask for a crazier, zanier lineup than that. Nancy Pelosi, Bill Clinton, and Tim Walz tonight. We'll bring it to you live, and we'll be talking. We'll be Mystery Science Theater 3000ing the comments and the speeches as they go along. There'll be some other stuff peppered into. If you joined us the last 2 nights, you know how much fun it is. And like I said, we're going to do it tonight and tomorrow, and then we'll get some sleep because this whole thing will be over. But I appreciate everybody who tuned in live today. Thank you for all your super chats. If I missed one, don't know that it's appreciated. If you're going to Mark Kaye shop right now and you're buying some stuff, we appreciate that as well. You're going to love it, first of all. It's all great. It's high quality. It's really fantastic. It's comfortable. It's stylish. And you get something amazing, and you can help promote the show a little bit as well. So go to markkshop.com right now. Make your purchases. Use coupon code Merry Christmas, and you get 10% off your entire order. And then join us again at 9 o'clock. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the podcast, listen every day, and share it. Share it. Let everybody know, hey, you know what? This Mark Kaye guy, he's onto something. Hey, you know what? Do you know why Donald Trump is a better pick than Kamala Harris for president? Do you know why you should be voting for this person over that person? If you're ever caught in a conversation and you don't know the answer, or you don't know how to explain it to someone, or you have a friend or a family member and they just seem lost in the woods, and you're worried that they're going to wander out into the wilderness and get scooped up by the socialists, then just send them my podcast, send them a video, send them my TikTok, whatever you need to do, because I'm out here sharing this message, not for me, but for you and for those people who don't quite grasp it yet, those people who haven't heard it and don't understand it. We got to spread the wealth. We can't just preach to the choir. We've got to go out to the unconverted and convert them. The more we convert, the easier it will be, and the more likely we are to save the republic. Okay, good.